we are going to be exploring 19 of the coolest features in Google Gemini that you probably had no idea even existed. Some of these features are going to be paid, others are going to be free. But with that being said, let's dive into it right now. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that in Google Gemini, you can just generate images. So for example, in the log here, we can just say, hey, please generate me an image of a dog, and within a matter of seconds it's going to generate you that image of a dog. It's funny because I feel like even a few years ago, if you went out onto the street and said to a stranger, hey, in a couple of years from now you'll be able to generate an image of a dog from text, they'd look at you and be like, you're crazy. But here we go, a few years later, and it's completely possible. It's just an anecdote. I love it because Gemini always gives me golden retrievers or ginger dogs. I think it secretly knows them a ginger, and it wants to pair me up with other redheads as well. Now, on top of actually being able to generate images like this, you can actually analyze images straight through Google Gemini as well. So let me explain what I mean by that. So let's say, for example, we have a picture of a mountain range. I just pulled this off of Google and I downloaded this mountain range. And let's say we want to import this into Google Gemini. Well, the reality is maybe I want to have Google Gemini process this image and tell me what it means. But obviously that's a complicated task to do, right? Because it requires vision. But using Google Gemini, using their AI, I can't speak right now. Their AI algorithms, they can actually detect what is going on in the image and serve that back to you. So please tell me what's going on in this image. And it's going to be able to essentially tell you exactly what it sees, right? So this image shows a stunning panoramic view of vast mountain ranges. Here's a breakdown of some of the key elements. So snow-capped peaks, glaciers, deep valleys, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's really cool. Practically speaking, what this could mean, there's a lot of different use cases. Maybe you could use it for security, for detecting abnormalities in video or in footage, or maybe you want to generate titles and descriptions of images that you want to upload as products onto an e-commerce store. So that's just two of many examples that you could use this for. Now, the next thing in Google Gemini is that you can create something called custom gems. So if we just circle back, you can always create new chats here, right? And this is just a generic way to interact with Google Gemini. But using the gem manager down here, and this is a paid feature, by the way, you can create your own custom functions, you could call it, I guess, where essentially you set up certain things that you want it to do for you, and then it will do those things incredibly well. So for example, you could have a gem that specializes in brainstorming, right? And it will help you brainstorm really cool ideas. Maybe you want a career guide, like how to apply to certain places, how to polish your resume, all that kind of stuff. This can help you out. Maybe you want a coding partner where you want to be able to bounce code off of Google Gemini, and it'll work through problems that you find difficult simultaneously with you, right? So these are just a couple of examples, but you can create your own new gem down here. So in this case, I created a contract gem, which allows me to generate contracts and send that off to clients immediately from within, from using Google Gemini. So practically speaking, we have our gem here. It's the contract gem. And all I have to do is say, please create a contract for me. And it's going to follow up with a couple different things. I'm going to say the title is going to just be contract, and description I'm going to give an email here, and I'll explain what's going on. So practically speaking, what I've done is I've hooked up this Google Gem. If we go into edit and look at the description here, the instructions are your main job is to create a task for users in Google Tasks, right? And you just need to enter in a title and a description. And here is the task that we created. Now, we have a task, very simple. The title is contract, and the body of the task is an email. What that means is that when this task is created, I've actually synced this up with something called make.com. Make.com is a automation platform that just connects in tens of thousands of other applications. If I just show you some of these applications, you probably use them already, like Google Drive or Airtable or Monday.com or your Gmail account, Google Calendar, Facebook, tens of thousands of applications, right? But in this case, when a task has been created, we're going to pull out that email and we're going to create a contract. This is kind of just a template contract that I created in like 2 seconds just to show you guys what the power of this would look like. But yeah, you can just create a contract like this in a software called PandaDoc, which is a document building software. And then you could essentially send over a contract, and immediately straight from within Google Gemini, somebody that's a client, for example, could receive a contract and maybe they go ahead, sign, they pay straight through you just using Google Gemini here. So you can use this, you can turn Google Gemini into one of the most powerful AI agents that connects into absolutely anything. And it's not just limited to, of course, contracts. It could be a million and one things. Maybe you want to parse receipts. Maybe you want to create tasks in another software. Maybe you want to call, email, whatever, change or update people in your CRM. Maybe you want to create social media posts. Maybe you want to create blog posts. You can do that all through a custom gem like that, setting it up the exact same way. I'll have the blueprint for how to do this in the description down below if you guys want to take a look at that for yourselves. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here, which is feature 4, is that instead of just using Google Gemini from within Google Gemini, you can actually just use Google Gemini in other platforms. So for example, if we circle back to this example of make.com, we created this contract, right? Which is freaking cool. But imagine that instead of using Google Gemini and having to always interface with it in their console here, you could just have it set up on autopilot. So day in, day out, even if you're sleeping, you're eating, you're hanging out with friends, it's just doing work for you. So instead of it being like a colleague that assists you, it's an autonomous AI employee that just does tasks for you without you even having to think about having to do those tasks yourself. So practically speaking, let's give a couple examples here. So in this example, we have emails coming in, right, to my Gmail account. And what we're going to do is we're going to essentially find receipts in the emails, right? So PDF files with receipts. And if we find those PDF files, what we're going to do is we're going to use Google Gemini to break those receipts down into line items and then send them into a Google sheet like this. So immediately I just took a receipt off my email and then I automatically added it into Google Sheets. I could add it into accounting software as well. The options are endless. Another example could be that maybe I want to use Google Gemini to create blog posts, right? So full-on blogs, even uploading it straight into WordPress, this can all be done automatically. Practically speaking, this is what one of those blog posts could look like if you used it properly. So not only could you create blog posts automatically using Google Gemini, but then once those blog posts are published, you could then go ahead and turn those same blog posts, reformat the data so that you turn them into social media posts, like posting it on Facebook or posting it on Instagram. So possibilities are endless here, but those are just a couple examples of how you could use Google Gemini outside of the actual platform, and you can accomplish literally anything. The only limitation to what you can and cannot do is essentially your imagination, right? So if you think big enough, you can probably do it. The next thing here is that you can change the formatting of data in Google Gemini. So for example, let's say that I want to format data in tables or lists or code or whatever. You can just change it up. So let's say that please create a table of the average temperature in USA, and it's just going to go ahead and do that, right? So let's just see what it says here. Okay, so I think I messed up on the prompt, so I'm just actually going to go back and rechange this. Please create a table of the average temperature in the USA by month. And we're going to update it here. And this is just going to give a bit more details as to actually creating that table. And here we go. We have month, January all the way to December, and then the average temperature in Fahrenheit degrees, right? We could turn that into a list as well. Please give me the same data, but this time in a list format. And now, instead of outputting it in a table format, we're outputting it in a list format as well. This is JSON data to be specific, but this is just another example of data formats that you can use. So instead of saying, please give me a bullet list format, not JSON, it's going to convert that once again into a new list of data. So options are endless here. There's a lot of different ways that you can format the data to get the results that you're looking for. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here is the context window of Google Gemini. So if you guys have been using these platforms for a long time, sometimes you'll run into errors where you're like, man, like I just can't process all the data that I need to process in one go because the information I'm trying to upload, it's just too big. And there's nothing more frustrating than when you're like, you really need help, you're stuck on something, and you come to something like Google Gemini and you're like, hey, please help me solve this problem. And it says, sure, no problem. But unfortunately, that's way too much data. So better luck next time. And you have to parse it into like multiple responses, or sometimes it just doesn't work. Now with Google Gemini, what's cool, and this is a paid feature by the way, is that the context window is 1 million tokens. So that sounds like a bunch of gibberish, like at least it did to me the first time I heard it. But essentially what a token is it's like units of words. So a token on average is like 4 characters, right? So one token would be a word like that. Or season, let's just type in season. This would be 1 token here and then half a token there, right? So 1 million tokens, in other words, is a freaking ton of data. So let's say that we pull in all of our favorite book, which is the lifetime works of William Shakespeare. I'm sure every single person watching this video right now has read this book at one time or another. If you haven't, I'm just kidding. I've never read this in my entire life. This would be a mouthful to go through, but I chose it because it's 3,910 pages. This would like take me 10 lifetimes to read because I'm sure it would be pretty dry. And it's very, very long. But the point is that you can actually upload that entire book of 3,910 pages, and it will literally process that whole thing for us. So we can go ahead and upload that PDF, and I can say, please summarize this PDF in 1 paragraph. And what it's going to do is it's going to literally read what would take me 10 years to do in the span of like maybe 30, 45 seconds. And yeah, it's just going to summarize the entire book for me. So instead of me having to spend my time reading this, it's just going to do that all for me instead. And the other thing that I want to point out here, which actually brings me to the next feature, is another cool thing about software like this is that you can just summarize what it is that you're like, summarize information on the web, right? So if you didn't want to read a book like this, or if you want to summarize emails that are coming into your inbox, or if you want to summarize articles that you find online, you can easily upload those into Google Gemini and you could summarize all that content, right? So this is a huge game changer, and it's going to save so much time. So in this example, it says this PDF is an ebook version of the complete works of William Shakespeare published in 1916, and so on and so forth, right? So that's really, really cool. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here is that you can actually upload documents and analyze those documents straight through Google Gemini. So as an example, okay, we have this PDF document here. And this PDF document is just about Spotify and top charts and all of that kind of stuff. And what we can do, very similarly to how we did it with this PDF document, and by the way, it's not just PDF documents, I'm just using PDFs for this example. You could use CSV files, you could use pretty much any other file that you want to upload. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I just ended up with a PDF file. But you can just upload that data and you can get it to analyze and provide you with certain information. So I could say, please tell me the most popular track on this list. and it's going to go through, analyze the whole thing, and actually provide answers to the questions that you have. So instead of you, let's say, for example, maybe you needed to go through something a bit longer than a 2 to 3 page PDF. Maybe it's a Shakespeare PDF, right? And you're like, man, that's going to take me so freaking long. Like, this is ridiculous. All of a sudden, it can pull out answers for you really, really quickly, right? Which is awesome. So it just went through, it pulled out the most popular song, which is One Dance by Drake. So that's another really powerful use case of Google Gemini. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here is that Google Gemini can also be like your technical partner, or like a fractional CTO, in the sense that, like, chief technology officer, in the sense that, like, it will literally help you through problems that you cannot solve yourself. I remember the first time I actually got into using platforms like this was because I was struggling with a coding problem for like 12 hours. I was this close to like smashing my computer in and just like going, like just getting into a full rage over how I could not solve a problem. And my friend's like, hey, you should just try using like an AI platform to solve it for you. I'm like, there's no freaking way. There's 0% chance that that's going to work at all. And within 5 minutes, it was solved. And I thought it was like a miracle at the time, because I was like, how is this platform solving coding problems that I can't even solve myself, and that I've scoured the entire web for answers, and I just couldn't find anything. So bottom line is that it's incredibly powerful at doing certain types of coding. Obviously, not all coding, if it's very complicated, or if you're at a high level in software engineering, it's probably not going to be a lifesaver for you. But if you're doing like basic kind of stuff, front-end work, and it's not too sophisticated, then something like this can really help you out. So for example, let's say that you want to code a function, right? And you want to change somebody's name to uppercase. So instead of it being Jono Catliffe, now it's completely uppercase. I could say, please create me a JavaScript function to uppercase someone's name. And if you didn't know how to do this, or you're struggling with how to create this, it's just going to create that function for you. But you also could literally just provide it with all of your code, like or whatever, and it's going to solve that entire page for you. And if you're sitting here being like, oh man, this is boring, like I'm not a coder or whatever, it's not only just code. Oh, this seems to have not worked totally exactly how I wanted it to. So we'll just back up here and try it again. Please create me a JavaScript function to take a user's name and turn it into uppercase letters. It's not just about coding, right? You can do so many more things with it. So this is kind of the example there. I'll come back to this in a second. But let's say you're using Google Sheets and you're trying to struggle to find a formula, or you're using Google Excel and you're struggling to find a formula, or anything technical where you just want an answer. Things like math or coding, or things like Excel or formulas or whatever. All of that kind of stuff can be done very well within Google Gemini. It's going to save so much freaking time. This is actually one of the best use cases that I use it for, because anytime I struggle with anything, I just ask Google Gemini, and it's like I have like a person that's very technical in my pocket that I can call on at any point in time. And this particular JavaScript function to uppercase, it literally just takes somebody's name and it turns it to uppercase. So for this example, we come in with John Doe, and the output would be John Doe, just uppercase right here. So in a matter of seconds, if you're struggling with technical issues, then you have a solution through Gemini here. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the extensions within Google Gemini. So the cool thing is if you go into settings and you go to extensions, you can plug in Google Gemini into so many different Google applications. So this natively is going to be unchecked for at least at the time that's recording. So please go ahead and check off Google Workspace if you want to give Google Gemini access to your workspace, like Gmail and Google Calendar and Docs and all of that kind of stuff. And by default, everything else will be checked off, like Google Flights, Google Hotels, Maps, YouTube Music. Now, just a couple, I'm just going to give my 2 cents here. First of all, I think that this is really cool. I think at the time of this recording, I perceive this to be more Flash than anything else, because it's like, yeah, you can create a draft in Gemini for your Gmail, but you can also just go to Gmail and create a draft there as well. So it's kind of like it has the functionality. It's just serving you limited functionality of what you could do better in the platforms that you otherwise could be using. Yes, it's centralized in one place, but I would rather just go to Gmail, write emails or summarize emails or whatever. That's just my personal opinion. However, I think that over time, as time goes on, this will become more powerful, unlock a lot of features that you may or may not be able to do in these platforms. And this extension library is going to grow, I think, significantly past just Google products into a breadth of other things as well, just like you see in ChatGPT, where there's a library of just hundreds and hundreds of other applications that, add their own software into it, like creating presentations or videos or whatever straight through it. So there's a lot of room to grow here. But let me just give you one example, which is Google Hotels here. So let's say I have a new chat and I want to find a hotel for myself in Sydney, Australia. I could say, please find me a hotel in Sydney, Australia for July 25th next year, right? My budget is under $200, let's just say. This is really cool because me personally, I really don't like going on to Google and searching this stuff up, and then you're bombarded with 1,000 different offers, and then you're just like, which one do I choose? And you get paralysis by analysis. But something like this is really nice because it's like, hey, here's just a couple options, and then you just click on it. It's like, bam, there's the results. And you can just move forward immediately. So that's really, really cool, right? Now, the next thing is that, of course, you can use these different extensions in chat or in Google Gemini. I always get the two confused. So for example, I could say, please pull in my last, please pull in the second last email that I received, okay? And it's just going to pull in from Gmail the second last email that I received, which is really cool. And it doesn't just have to be one email. You could pull in all your emails for the day. You could summarize all the emails for the day. But I'm just going to focus on one because it's my personal email account here. Okay, sweet. So this is just one example of an email that I pulled in, new sale for somebody donated $6 to one of my blueprints. I could not only pull that email in, I could say, please summarize this exact email. And it's going to take that email and then it's going to summarize that to make it even shorter, right? So let's say somebody gave you a freaking long email and you're thinking, man, you expect me to read all that content? Like, oh my gosh. You could just summarize it down, right? And you could also say, please create a draft email response to this message. Do not use any templates or variables. Give me a final product, okay? And then it's just going to create a draft email that I can send off pretty much right away. And then I could just share and export and draft this in Gmail, then go ahead and go into Gmail and send it off. So obviously really cool, a lot of opportunities there. But the cool thing about it is Gemini doesn't just work with these applications from Google Gemini. What I really like and where I see a lot of potential with Google Gemini is that it's not just a standalone application where it's like, hey, come here and do everything in this centralized hub. They're actually building it as a product across their entire Google workplace platform. So if we go into Google Sheets here, you have this Gemini logo up at the top right. Now, if I click on this and I say, please generate me a table of the average temperatures in USA by month, it's literally just going to take a couple seconds and generate that table for me. So in a matter of seconds, it's gonna get something up and running, which is super cool. This can save a lot of time. And the thing that I like to think about is like, I already think this is pretty cool. But realistically speaking, it's probably on the cusp right now for me using it or not, just in terms of practicality. But I think it's going to get way, way better in the next few years. And I think this could be the future of, using Google products where you start with a base and then you work on top of the base that it provides you with, right? Just because it's going to save so much time. Another example here is I have a Google slideshow and I created a slide using AI. This is literally what it said. I just asked it about world population, give me like a summary of world population, and I could follow up and say, please create oops, I'm going to create a new slide here. Please create another slide. Actually, it's going to create a third slide down here about the trends of world population over the next decade, right? And once again, it's going to take a couple seconds and then generate another slide for me, just essentially out of thin air, right? So I don't know, to me that seems really impressive. And once again, I think that this is just a product in its infancy, and in the next 2, 3, 4 years, it's going to be absolutely game changing, right? And now you can do this in Google Slides, you can do this in Google Sheets, you can do this in pretty much every Google product out there. This is just 2 examples of how this would work. Okay, so this is the slide that it gave us. Population trends the next decade looks good to me. And there we go, right? So that's really, really fascinating, at least to me. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here is enhancing writing. So, you know what's funny is like I want to type out like a bad sentence with like spelling mistakes, but I have to think so hard about making all these mistakes that I'd like be sitting here for 5 minutes trying to create a horrible sentence. Please, so I'm just going to ask Gemini to do this for me. Please create a horribly written sentence with spelling, grammar, and punctuation mistakes. Okay, awesome. And here we go. Here's the example. It's like really hard to write a sentence bad, you know? I mean, everyone just does their best. Maybe if I tried to make a lot of mistakes, then it would be really bad. So now we have our bad sentence and we could enhance our writing. So please enhance this writing to the level of a postdoctorate. And all of a sudden we can choose, right, what level we want that writing to be at, and then it's going to completely change how this interact or how the text comes out. So we went from it's really hard to write a sentence bad, you know, to a delightful challenge. So here we go. The inherent difficulty in intentionally constructing a grammatically flawed sentence rife with I don't even know I've never seen that word before in my life. Orthographical and punctuation errors is evident indeed. The ingrained human propensity for linguistic accuracy. Oh my gosh, it's like, it takes me back to my university years where you read a sentence and you're like, this makes no sense at all. And I think you're just overcomplicating things and trying to make it sound more complicated than it is to make yourself sound more smarter than you actually are. So anyways, I think that like, very interesting, but you can change like the writing style, right? And it doesn't just have to be postdoctorate. And I don't even think that most postdoctorates even write like that. But I think it's a really interesting example of how you can increase your writing skills, right? Well, not increase your writing skills, but increase the output of your writing very quickly. This is great for emails. This is great if you have to write content online. There's 1,000,001 applications for this, but this could really help you save a lot of time. Next thing here that I want to talk about is brainstorming ideas. So one of the cool things I think about these platforms is that they can really help you overcome writer's block. So case in point, let's say that you're starting a business and you want to come up with a good business name, right? But that's kind of challenging, and you can sit there for days trying to figure out like, how should I name my business? Let's say you have a plumbing business. It's quite challenging, right? And often you're struck with paralysis by analysis. But what you could do instead is come into something like Google Gemini and ask it to generate a bunch of names for you. So please generate me 100 names for my plumbing business. And it's just going to go ahead and simply do this. And what I like specifically about this is that it flips the script so that instead of you having to always brainstorm and think of creative ideas, it now allows you to just analyze good ideas and pick the one that stands out to you the most, right? So it just speeds up your workflow, allows you to be more efficient with your time. So quick fix plumbing, pipe dreams, flow pros, drain doctors. Drain doctors, I don't think is the best one here. Leak ninjas, tap titans. Anyways, so on and so forth. There is a lot of alliterations in there as well that it likes to use. So next thing that I want to talk about here is custom instructions. So the thing is that you can tell Google Gemini to remember certain things about you. And every single time it interacts with you, it will recall what you told it to remember and then respond to you in a certain way. So in essence, you're customizing your own experience on the platform. So I went to the Philippines a couple of years ago, and it always makes me laugh because culturally it's quite a bit different. And over there, people always address you by sir. So usually I'm just like in North America, it's like, hey, you know, they'll say, hey, they'll address you by your first name, right? But over there, it's like, Sir Jono, welcome, Sir Jono. Hello, Sir Jono. How are you doing, Sir Jono? And that cracks me up, man. Like, I find that so freaking funny. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to tell Gemini to always address me by Sir Jono. So I'm going to start a new chat here. I'm going to say, please, always moving forward, address me by Sir Jono as my name, right? And then moving forward, every single time it communicates with me, it's going to address me by my real name, which is Sir Jono. So let's go ahead and do this again. What's my name? And it will say, your name is Sir Jono. So anyways, that's just one example, right? But practically speaking, what you could do is, like, let's say that you come into extensions and you use Google Gemini, right, for directions, right? And you plug it into Google Maps here. You could tell it, hey, when you're giving me instructions on how to get somewhere, just remember I don't have a car, for example. And then it's going to give you directions on how to walk there or take public transit, right? So it can customize your experience to the details that you provide it with, which is really handy, right? And it can save you a lot of time. The next thing that I want to go over here is assigning roles, right? So what I mean by that is, if the more information you provide Google Gemini with, the better it will be at delivering the response that you're actually looking for. So I could say, please write me an email. Please write an email to a friend confirming we'll meet tomorrow, right? And it's just gonna generate me like a really basic email, but you could just, oh my gosh, it's even signing off on Sir Jono too. That's hilarious. That is something that I'd have to change, Gemini. That's not going to cut it for me. Okay, it's only you. You only have the specific right to call me Sir Jono. So we could change this and assign it by assigning a role, right? So that role could be like, please write the same email, but this time address the friend like you're Shakespeare. So please write the same email, but speak like you're Shakespeare, right? And by assigning that role, it's gonna change the whole narrative of the message. So it's like, greetings, I prithee, never, once again, no idea how to say that, confirm our engagement for the morrow. I doth eagerly anticipate our reunion and share of our tales. We remain steadfast in our plan to convene at whatever time at the esteemed whatever location. So anyways, I know this is like kind of a bit out there, but this is just like a exaggerated example of what it is that you can do. So if you have a specific tone of voice that you like, then you can use that. So case in point too, like I use Google Gemini and these platforms to write blogs for me all the time. And I will write it on a service-based business. Let's just go back to the plumbing example. You can't convince me that if you write a blog post about something to do with plumbing, that I'm actually going to enjoy it. Like, I don't think anyone's going to read a plumbing post and be like, that was so entertaining that I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, because this is just blowing my mind. Like, I can't get enough of this kind of stuff. It's usually really dry material and it sucks, right? To have to read it, but you're reading it for a particular purpose because you need to get some information. So what you could do instead is just make the content more enjoyable for people to read, more engaging. And how I like to do that is through humor. So what I'll do is I'll tell it, my tone of voice is humor. Can you please write me something funny? It'll go off and do that. And at least when people read my blog posts, they're more engaging, they stay longer, they have a lower scroll depth, so they get lower on the page, and a lot of other metrics are increased, which means that my blog posts rise higher on Google and are more visible to more people, and ultimately speaking, I make more money because of that. So I think that this is a great way to change the tone of voice. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here is context, right? So let's say I want to learn how to program. I could just be like, please tell me how I should learn to program. And it's just going to give some really generic information here, right? So I'm going to start a new chat here because I just don't like the fact that it's communicating to me as if I was Shakespeare. Please, so I'm just going to say, please do not communicate to me like you're Shakespeare. And once that's out of the way, I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't there. I don't think it was saved, but just in case. Then I'm going to say, please tell me how I should learn software engineering. And it's just going to give like a really generic path forward. The problem with software engineering is there's just so many different avenues you can go down, right? Maybe you want to learn AI and Python. Maybe you want to learn web development and JavaScript. Maybe you want to become somebody who does like, I don't know, data analysis or modeling and that kind of stuff. Maybe you go to R, maybe you go on the back end, maybe you're somebody who specializes in C#. There's so many different paths, right? And when you just ask a generic question like this, it's going to give you a very generic answer. But if you provide more context, then it's going to understand what it is that you're looking to do a lot better, and it will give you a very tailored response to the question that you ask. So for example, I could say, please tell me the best path forward to learn software engineering. I already know HTML and CSS. These are like prerequisites pretty much to coding, hypertext markup language and cascading styling sheets. It's for like styling the page and putting elements on the page, like buttons, for example, or like this icon. And I could just say, I want to learn web development, for example. That's a specific type of development. And my goal is to create custom web applications, right? And now all of a sudden, it's going to take something very abstract and it's going to give you a custom tailored response. And in this case, now you're saying, okay, the first thing you want to do is you want to learn JavaScript fundamentals. And then after that, you want to learn front-end frameworks and back-end development. And it just gives you a very specific tailored plan with actionable steps. And it gives you concrete sound advice on how to accomplish the goals that you set for yourself. The last thing here that I want to talk about in this video today is follow-up questions using Google Gemini. So for example, in this video, I'm making, a video on Google Gemini features. So I could say to Google Gemini, please provide me with YouTube video titles for my video on Google Gemini features, right? And it's just gonna give me a list of different titles. Now that's great in itself, but I find that usually sometimes the best answers you get through multiple follow-up questions, right? This is also something that regular search engines just can't do, which makes AI search engines like this so powerful. So instead of it just providing me with a list of the best or of titles that I can use, maybe I want it to actually go ahead and pick a title for me. And the reason I say pick a title for me is, let's say you don't have any experience in marketing. Maybe you don't know what the most appealing hook is or the best title would be to generate the most clicks, right? But something like Google Gemini probably has a decent understanding of what's going to drive that human behavior, and it's going to give you a response based on the knowledge that it knows. So for example, we could come back in here and say, please, or we can say, given your marketing knowledge, please pick the title that would generate the most clicks. And then it's gonna, give you some examples. And it mentions here, it's tough to say for sure, right? Because it's never gonna know, it's not like it's bulletproof, but based on its logic and intuition, it will give you the response that it feels would be the best, right? I tried Google Gemini and this is what happened. So that's just an example, right? And I didn't set this up properly because I should have provided more context into, what I was doing specifically. But this is the list of titles, and that is the specific title that it feels would do the best. And that's how you can use follow-up questions to your advantage to get their best results on a platform like Google Gemini. Whew, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Really hope you enjoyed this type of content. If you have questions, leave them down below in the description. If you guys like videos like this and you want to learn more stuff about AI, automation, business, all that kind of stuff, please make sure to subscribe to my channel down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for your time, and bye-bye.